Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy Roll Good. We are continuing our series on the base class changes, specifically for the martial classes this week. So we're going towards the monks. So monks have been pretty magnificently modified. I think they're probably one of the most improved classes in the new player's handbook for 2024. So let's go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about. To begin with, again, we have the core traits. So we can see that there's been changes to their weapon proficiencies, so they are now proficient in simple weapons and martial weapons that have the light property. They used to only get short swords from martial weapons, and notably the dedicated weapon optional feature from Tasha's that allowed you to make sort of any weapon a monk weapon was not included in the player's handbook for 2024. And then, of course, with the starting equipment, as with every class, whereas it used to be sort of a selection of different armors and weapons, it is now just a weapon package or an equipment package or the optional wealth that you can start with. And the optional wealth is usually slightly above average of what it used to be before. Looking at the multi-classing inheritance, and again, what I mean by multi-classing inheritance is what you get if you take a level into monk. You just get the hit dice, of course. Simple weapons have been removed from all multi-class inheritances, but all classes now have simple weapon proficiency at least. Notably, short swords were removed. I don't know anyone was, ever taking a level in monk to get proficiency in short swords. There's other ways to do that, but it's just worth noting. And also, just a quick note, if regarding dedicated weapon, if your DM permits, if you're still using Tasha's rules, you can absolutely still use that optional feature from Tasha's to make any weapon a monk weapon. But I just wanted to point that out because if you're only using the new player's handbook forward, you just don't have that option anymore. Moving on to level 1, there's been improvements to the martial arts feature for monks. So they had a bonus action unarmed strike that previously required the attack action to happen first, but it no longer requires that. So you can just kind of bonus action unarmed strike and then use your action for something else, or you can use your action for something else and then bonus action unarmed strike. Next, the martial arts die has improved scaling. So it used to start at 1d4 and then go up to 1d10. It now starts at 1d6 at level 1, which is up from level 5. It goes up to 1d8 at level 5, up from level 11. It increases to 1d10 at level 11, up from level 17. And then finally at level 17, it increases to 1d12. So that's pretty cool. And then lastly, they can use dexterity instead of strength when determining the save DC of their grapple and shove options of the unarmed strikes. So again, grapples and shoves are now a saving throw. They're not a contested check. So it's 8+, normally it's 8+ strength plus your proficiency bonus, but monks specifically at level 1 get the ability to use 8+ dexterity plus their proficiency bonus. So that's pretty cool. And I have more about that in my my grappling video. If you look in my video history, it should probably be pretty recent from this one. Going on to level 2, there's been a change to monk focus, which is basically rebranded key points. So they're focus points now. In order to recharge your focus points on a short rest, you're no longer required to spend 30 minutes of rest meditating to get your focus points back. There's just sort of a weird little flavor requirement that they put in the original player's handbook. For flurry of blows, it no longer requires you to take the attack action first, whereas it previously did. So you can just take a dodge action with your main action and then flurry of blows, or you can interact with an item and then flurry of blows. You can do anything else. You don't have to take the attack action first. Patient defense, now just kind of baseline, allows you to take the disengage action as a bonus action without spending any focus, or you can spend 1 focus point to both disengage and dodge as a bonus action. And again, so disengage allows you to move away from enemies or move past enemies without provoking an opportunity attack, and then the dodge action gives disadvantage on all attacks against you until the beginning of your next turn, in addition to giving you advantage on dexterity saving throws. So if you're fighting a dragon, for example, that has a big fire breath, and you're going to be making a lot of dexterity saves, this is a way to kind of shore up your defenses just by spending 1 focus point to take the dodge action, essentially. And then Step of the Wind, without spending any focus points, you can just use the dash action as a bonus action, similar to a rogue with their cunning action. Or you can spend 1 focus point to both dash and disengage as a bonus action, as well as double your jump distance. Not bad. Secondly, there's a new feature called Uncanny Metabolism. This allows you to regain all expended focus when you roll initiative. In addition, you regain hit points equal to 1 roll of your martial arts die plus your monk level, and you can use this once per long rest. So this is, I think in the playtest, this came online a little bit later at like level 6, 5, 6, or 7. But it's nice to see this pretty early on because it's definitely earlier on that you're going to be running out of key points sooner. So this really just kind of extends how many key points you have, or sorry, not key points, focus points you have throughout an adventuring day, even at level 2. Moving on to level 3, they have changed the deflect attacks feature. So this now affects all attacks that deal bludgeoning, slashing, or piercing damage. Previously, it just affected ranged weapon attacks. You also have the ability to redirect the ranged attack, like you would grab the arrow out of the air and then throw it back at them. Previously, this had the ranged weapon of at a short distance of 20 feet and then a long distance of 60 feet. So between 20 and 60 feet, you had disadvantage on that attack roll technically, because you were throwing it at long range. But now that the range attack just has a range of 60, there's no short range or long range, so you don't have that disadvantage when you're throwing it back at that range. And then lastly, the damage has increased to 2 rolls of the martial arts die plus your dexterity modifier, whereas previously it was just 1 roll. So that's pretty cool. Moving on, we got the next one. Level 5, they changed Stunning Strike. This is probably for the better, although there's some weird little inconsistencies with it. So it can be used once per turn, down from being able to kind of spam it on each hit. I think that's a generally pretty healthy change. It's gonna, increase your focus point efficiency because you're not gonna be trying to spam it on every hit, trying to stun a target, because stun was of course very powerful. But if the target then succeeds on their save, because it is a Constitution save, and then against very important targets, they often have very good con scores. That's just how the monster manual works out. If they succeed their save, then their speed is halved, and the next attack against them has advantage. And previously, it had no effect if they made their save. So if they fail the save, then they're stunned. If they don't fail the save, or sorry, if they don't fail the save, then they can't move quite as much, and it has sort of the guiding bolt effect where the next attack has advantage. One thing to note here is that the stunned condition no longer prevents a target from moving, which is a weird oversight. Previously, I think it was either part of the incapacitated condition or the stunned condition that the target had 0 movement, but wherever that was, that line has been removed. So if a target is stunned, they can't take actions or do anything else, but they can still move around even at full speed, which is kind of weird again. But yeah, that's how they changed Stunning Strike. I do like the once per turn. I think that's a good balancing. I just think the being able to move while stunned is just a weird thing to happen. Moving on, at level 6, we have Empowered Strikes. This is a rebranded key Empowered Strikes. This is what originally allowed monks to overcome resistance to non-magical attacks. But now it basically says that whenever you deal damage with your unarmed strike, you can deal your choice of force damage or the normal damage type. It seems like they're kind of making force damage the new the damage type that is basically not resisted. So I'll be kind of interested to see the monster manual to see if they have anything that grants force resistance, because it's very rare for features now to even grant resistance to everything. Usually it's everything but force, or it's everything but force and psychic, or anything like that. So we'll see how that shakes out, because that's pretty interesting. So moving on from there, we got level 7 features at evasion. This was nerfed just a little bit. It can no longer be used, or you no longer benefit from it if you're incapacitated, whereas previously it was active all the time. It's not often that you're incapacitated in combat while you're also making a saving throw. I mean, it can happen. There are spells that do incapacitate you, but it's rare that both are happening at the same time. This would be more like if you're caught sleeping and then someone throws a fireball at you, you don't get the benefit of evasion, of course, which, it makes sense, but it is technically a nerf. All right, moving on, we got level 9. They have acrobatic movement. This replaces the unarmored movement improvement from the original monk. It now requires no armor or shield, down from no restriction previously. I think this is basically just to keep it more consistent with all the other monk features that don't require armor or a shield. It just kind of neglected to mention that in 2014, even though it made sense for the monk to be that way. So again, it says while you aren't wearing armor or a shield, you gain the ability to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids, on your turn without falling during the movement. Of course, you will still fall at the end of your movement, like you're not sticking to the wall. You don't have a spider climb necessarily. You'll still fall into the water if you are still on top of the water when you end your movement. But you can run across it or run up it at any point during your turn. Moving on to level 10. Level 10 is a pretty nutty feature for the monk. So heightened focus is a new feature that is very powerful. So it basically improves all of your basic focus point spenders. So Flurry of Blows now grants 1 additional attack. So as a bonus action, you can spend a focus point and, make 3 unarmed strikes, which is pretty crazy because, again, that is not coupled to your attack action. So even if you have to do something else with your action, such as, try to break a grapple or something like that, you can still make 3 attacks on that turn, which is pretty great. Patient Defense. So when you spend the focus points on Patient Defense, it now also grants temporary hit points equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die, which at this level is 2d8. And then for Step of the Wind is the one that people are kind of hyped about. When you use the focus point spending option of Step of the Wind, you can bring a willing creature that is large or smaller with you when you move until the end of your turn. Specifically, if you look at the bottom here, it says you move the creature with you until the end of turn. It doesn't say that you're grabbing onto them. It doesn't say that you need to have a free hand to do it. So they're just kind of riding the wind with you, I guess. I don't know how that technically works, but you don't have to use your hand. So this is the one thing where people are saying, since allies can willingly fail a save and grapples are saving throws, you can grapple one ally that has an emanation AoE effect like Spirit Gardens. You can grapple another ally that has a similar emanation, and then you can Step of the Wind, bring another ally with you who has a big AoE effect, and then run around the battlefield at full speed, and just applying all that damage to, if there's a bunch of enemies on the battlefield. And again, the movement from Step of the Wind specifically doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. I don't think it would anyway, because you're the one moving them, right? It says you move the creature with you, so it's forced movement in that way. They're not using their movement, their bonus action, reaction, or action to move, so it wouldn't provoke opportunity attacks anyway. Same with dragging the creature that's being grappled. That's not going to provoke opportunity attacks. So that. I mean, if you're wondering why did I make this video about adding encumbrance to grappling, especially when you have monks with 8 strength and 20 dex, that this is kind of the reason I was like, you might want to impose some restrictions on this because that can be very powerful. Moving on, we have the Self-Restoration, which is a replacement for the Purity of Body feature. This is the one that made you immune to poison and disease for the monk. It now says that you can remove one of the following conditions at the end of your turn. The Charmed, Frightened, or Poisoned condition. And you also can't gain exhaustion from starvation or dehydration. There was talk during the playtest because you are losing that immunity to disease, and I don't remember where it was in the playtest, but there was talk that that diseases would work off the poisoned condition or be considered poisons in some way. So you can still remove a disease from you at the end of a turn, assuming that's how it's going to work. But technically, you're now no longer quote unquote immune to disease. You can just kind of remove it from you. I expect to see more guidance about that probably in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There'll probably be a section about diseases on the DM toolbox in Chapter 3. Moving on to level 13, Tongue of the Sun and Moon has been removed. This was just sort of a ribbon feature that allowed people to understand everything you say. And then that's sort of been replaced with Deflect Energy, which basically improves deflect attacks to now work against any damage type. It still specifically does need to be an attack roll, but it now works against all damage types, which is great. Moving on to level 14, we have Disciplined Survivor, which is just a rebranded Diamond Soul. Pretty much mechanically the same. You have proficiency in all saving throws, which is never bad. And then additionally, whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 focus point to re-roll it, and you must use the new roll. So that's pretty cool too. Moving on to level 15, we have Timeless Body. This one has been removed, but the lack of the need for food or water has been moved to the self-restoration feature that we talked about previously at level 10. And then Perfect Focus is sort of a new-ish feature. This was kind of previously the capstone for 2014 monks at level 20, but it's been moved down to level 15 and adjusted a little bit. So it says when you roll initiative, if you don't use your Uncanny Metabolism feature, which is the feature that allows you to regain all your expended focus points and then heal a little bit. If you don't use that feature when you roll initiative, you instead regain expended focus points until you have 4 if you have 3 or fewer. So if you start a combat with no focus points and you're a level 15 monk, then you just get 4 focus points to use for that combat, which is pretty cool. All right, moving on to level 18 features. We have superior defense. So this basically replaces the empty body feature. The empty body feature previously allowed you to go invisible. It allowed you to cast the astral projection spell. Just I don't know what you'd use that for, but it's just a feature that has been removed from it. It ends if you're incapacitated, but it does cost 1 less focus point. So what it does say now, it says at the start of your turn, you can expend 3 focus points to bolster yourself against harm for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. And then during that time, you have resistance to all damage except force damage. It always did that. So all they really did was take things away and make it cost a little bit less. And I don't even know if it's like one. I mean, resistance to all damage is pretty powerful. So maybe 3 focus points is worth it. But even then, you're not invisible, which you used to be before. Again, astral projection is a function that they removed. Maybe 2 focus points would have been a little better, but either way, it's still a very good feature, but it has been pretty significantly changed. Moving on to level 19, again, this is where classes have the epic boon mentioned here. And again, the only requirements for epic boons is that you are character level 19. And then, so if you are level 19 or 20 and you're getting a feat or an ASI at those levels, then you can grab an epic boon. Lastly, for the monk at level 20, they have a new capstone called Body and Mind. This increases their dexterity and wisdom by 4 up to 25. This is very similar to the barbarian feature that increases their strength and constitution by 4 up to 25. And again, the up to 25 is trying to account for the free +1 up to 30 for an ability score that is granted by the epic boons. So that's a pretty great feature because again, dexterity and wisdom is part of their unarmored defense calculation. So that's basically what +4 to your AC just on this alone. +2 to your save DCs, +2 to your attack rolls. It's pretty great feature all around. So moving on to our summary of the monk class. So we can see that there's actually quite a few nerfs here. Notably, there were 2 features that were removed entirely, but they were mainly ribbons, so we're not too worried about losing those. You might feel a little more nerfed if you don't have the dedicated weapon, because I know some people like to use certain pole arms and use that, but I think monks are pretty strong in 2024 alone that you might not need those bigger weapons. Stunning Strike was nerfed a little bit, of course. Evasion was nerfed because you can't use it while you're incapacitated. Acrobatic Movement was nerfed a little bit, and then Superior Defense was nerfed quite a bit as well. But we can still see that there's been just so many significant changes. Like they have one of the biggest change logs of any class, and they're just kind of buffed across the board. They have so many new features that even with all these little nerfs here and there, basically the buffs more than make up for it. So it's basically a net buff. So let me know what you think about monks down in those comments. Like, what is your favorite feature that they added here? What kind of builds are you thinking about? Again, while you're going down to those comments, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and you kind of like the way that the content is presented, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Otherwise, we will see you on the next video for, I don't know if it's I think it's the Ranger or the Paladin, and I'll see you on the next one.